"Chloe, sweetie, drink this. It will make you feel better." I was holding a ceramic bowl, sitting carefully on the edge of my granddaughter's bed. Inside the bowl was the herbal remedy I had simmered for 2 hours, an old family recipe specifically for bringing down a fever. 7-year-old Chloe's small face was flushed red, but she obediently propped herself up. Just as she was about to take the bowl, the bedroom door was thrown open. "Chloe Peterson, who told you to drink that filthy stuff?" My daughter-in-law, Jessica, stormed in on her high heels and knocked the bowl from my hands. The dark brown liquid splashed across the floor, and the bowl shattered into several pieces. "Mom, can you please stop trying to hurt people with these folk remedies?" She turned to glare at me, her recent Botox making her expression seem particularly unnatural under the light. "What century are we in? Still drinking herbal tea? Do you have any idea how much bacteria is in that?" I knelt to pick up the broken shards, cutting my finger on a sharp edge, but I didn't dare make a sound. For 5 years, I had grown accustomed to scenes like this. "Grandma," Chloe called out to me timidly, her big eyes welling up with tears. "It's all right, sweetie. Grandma will go get you some medicine from the store." I forced a smile and backed out of the room. In the kitchen, while I ran cold water over the cut on my finger, I listened to Jessica talking on the phone in the living room. "It's so annoying. That old hag is making trouble for me again. If it weren't for the fact that she can pick up Chloe from school, I would have kicked her out ages ago." I silently reached for the fever medicine on the top shelf of the cabinet. It was the bottle Jessica had bought last week. I couldn't reach it myself, and I didn't want to always be bothering my son. Just as I had poured a glass of water, I heard the sound of a key in the front door. Michael was home. I quickly dried my hands and went to greet him. "You're back. Dinner is being kept warm in the oven." He didn't even look at me, walking straight toward the bedroom. "I'm exhausted. Don't bother me tonight." I stood there, still holding the glass of water. 5 years ago, when I handed over the company I had run for 20 years to him, he looked just as tired. But back then, he would at least say, "Thanks, Mom. You've worked hard." "Michael," Jessica's voice came from the bedroom. "Your mother was giving Chloe that weird herbal junk again." "She meant well." Michael's voice was tired and weak. "Meant well? Do you have any idea how bad the flu is this year? What if it delays her treatment?" I gently placed the water glass on the coffee table and returned to my own room, a converted storage closet less than 90 square feet. In an old photograph on the wall, a young Michael had his arm around my shoulder, his smile radiant. That was the day he graduated from college. I had sold my gold bracelet to treat his entire class to dinner. Late that night, I was awakened by the sound of arguing. Pressing my ear to the wall, I could clearly hear the conversation between my son and daughter-in-law. "I can't live like this anymore," Jessica screamed hysterically. "You have to kick your mother out tomorrow." "Keep your voice down," Michael whispered back. "I've had enough. Just looking at that old hag all day is bad luck." Jessica's voice was like a knife stabbing into my heart. "If you don't get rid of her, we're getting a divorce. And you can take your daughter and get out." After a moment of silence, I heard my son say, "I'll figure something out." I curled up on my bed, tightly hugging the only photograph I had left of my husband and me. "Honey," I whispered, "is this the son we raised with so much love and sacrifice?" The next morning, I woke up at 5 o'clock as usual. I made porridge and pan-fried the green onion pancakes that Michael loved. At 6:30, Jessica's bedroom door was still closed. I tiptoed to the table, placed the breakfast there, and then went out to buy groceries. The early winter morning was bone-chillingly cold. I wrapped my old down jacket, the one I had bought 5 years ago, tightly around myself, thinking about buying Chloe a new scarf. Last week, she had mentioned that her classmates made fun of her for having such an old one, but Jessica had scolded her for not being frugal. At the farmer's market, I picked out the freshest pork ribs and yams, planning to make a nourishing soup for Chloe. After having a fever yesterday, she surely wouldn't have much of an appetite today. "Mrs. Eleanor, here to get something good for your granddaughter again?" the vegetable seller asked with a smile. I nodded, a pang of sadness in my heart. Chloe was the only warmth I had left in this house. When I got back to my apartment building, I froze. My luggage, 2 suitcases, and a woven bag was piled neatly in the hallway. My hand trembled as I reached for my key, only to find the keyhole had been blocked. "Who is it?" Jessica's voice came from inside. "It's me," my voice shook. "I'm back from the market." The door opened a crack, the security chain still in place. Jessica's perfectly made-up face appeared in the gap. "Get lost, you old hag. Just seeing you is bad luck. I've packed all your things for you. Take them and go." She slammed the door shut. I stood outside, shivering. In my 71 years of life, I had survived famine, been laid off, and lost my husband. But I had never felt as hopeless as I did in this moment. From inside the apartment, I heard Michael's voice. "Just find somewhere else to stay for now. In a couple of days, I'll—" "Michael Peterson!" Jessica's shriek cut him off. I bent down and slowly pulled up the handle of my suitcase. Just then, the nanny from Mrs. Davis's apartment across the hall came out to take out the trash. She looked at me in surprise. "Mrs. Eleanor, what are you?" I shook my head, not wanting to lose face in front of an outsider. As I turned to leave, a thought suddenly struck me. 3 months ago, I had secretly bought the luxury condominium across the hall. That was my secret. 20 years ago, when I was starting my business, I had saved up a private fund without my husband knowing. Later, it grew into a portfolio of properties. This unit across the hall was originally intended as a gift for Chloe's 18th birthday. Dragging my luggage, under the nanny's shocked gaze, I walked to the door across the hall and pressed my thumb on the fingerprint scanner. Beep. "Welcome home." The mechanical female voice sounded exceptionally clear in the quiet hallway. The door opened. Without looking back, I walked inside, leaving the sound of a sharp gasp behind me. The fingerprint lock emitted a crisp beep, and the heavy, solid wood door slid open silently. I dragged my luggage into the foyer as the motion sensor lights turned on, illuminating the grand condominium I had never shown to anyone. A 3,000-square-foot space opened up before me, with imported Italian marble floors so polished you could see your reflection, and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a view of the entire city's glittering lights. I set down my luggage and gently ran my fingers over a photograph on the foyer console. It was a picture of Chloe on her 6th birthday, one I had secretly taken of her here. The background was this very wall of windows. "Grandma, is this our secret base?" In my memory, Chloe was looking up at me, her eyes full of starlight. "Yes, it is. It's Grandma's 18th birthday present for you." I knelt to meet her gaze. "But we have to keep it a secret for now. We can't even tell Mommy and Daddy." The child nodded vigorously, and the way she linked her pinky with mine made my heart melt. Now, this secret base had become my refuge. I turned on the central air conditioning, and a warm current of air quickly chased away the chill. I went into the master bedroom, changed into comfortable loungewear, and only then did I notice that the cut on my finger was bleeding again. The first aid kit was in the master bathroom's medicine cabinet. I expertly took out some antiseptic and a bandage. When this place was being renovated, I had personally overseen every detail, even mulling over the placement of each electrical outlet. Thinking back, all that meticulous planning was, unexpectedly, for myself today. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a call from Michael. I stared at the screen for a long time before finally pressing the silent button. If I answered the phone now, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to stop myself from crying. After making a calming cup of chamomile tea, I sat down at the desk and opened my laptop. The screen soon displayed several security camera feeds, live footage from the living room, kitchen, and foyer of my old home. For 5 years, the cameras I had secretly installed had been silently recording everything in that house. On the screen, Michael was pacing anxiously, while Jessica sat on the sofa, painting her nails, occasionally looking up to say something. Chloe's door was shut tight. I wondered how the child was doing. I pulled up today's recording and watched as, not long after I left, Jessica directed the nanny to pack all of my belongings. Michael stood to the side, trying to say something a few times, but was silenced by his wife's glare. In the end, she personally threw my medicine jars and photo albums into a trash bag. A sharp pain shot through my chest. I turned off the camera feed and opened another encrypted folder. This was where I kept all the financial backups for the company and all my property deeds. 20 years ago, I had started with a small food stall on the street, building my brand, Eleanor's Kitchen, on my family's secret wellness recipes. At its peak, I had 8 locations in the city. 5 years ago, Michael said he wanted to expand the business into high-end catering. I handed the company over to him without a second thought, retreating to a supporting role to take care of the family. Looking back now, that might have been the biggest mistake of my life. Just then, my lawyer, Mr. Peterson, called. "Eleanor, are you all right?" David's voice was full of concern. "My assistant said she saw you." "I'm fine," I interrupted him. "David, I need you to look into a few things for me." "Of course. Go ahead." "First, the complete financial records for the company for the last 3 years, especially the destination of any large expenditures. Second, the bank statements for all accounts under Jessica and her sister, Lauren's. Names for the past 2 years. Third," I paused. "Find out if Michael knew about any of this." After hanging up, I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. From this height, I could overlook the entire city skyline. Once upon a time, several of those lights belonged to signs for Eleanor's Kitchen. Now, some had been rebranded, and others had simply closed down. My phone lit up again. This time it was a text message. "Mom, where did you go? I'm worried." "Michael." "Worried?" I scoffed. Worried I'd die on the street, or worried I'd try to take Chloe with me. Just then, the doorbell rang. On the monitor, Michael stood outside, looking anxious, pressing the bell repeatedly. "Mom, I know you're in there. Mrs. Davis's nanny told me everything." His voice came through the door. "Please open the door. We need to talk." I sat quietly on the sofa, watching my son on the monitor go from anxious to angry, and then to panicked. 15 minutes later, he finally gave up. Before leaving, he kicked the fire hydrant hard. The night grew late, but I had no desire to sleep. Opening the safe, I took out a thick photo album. It was a record of Michael's life, from infancy to adulthood. Next to each photo, I had written the date and a little story. I turned to the last page, the picture of him with his arm around me on his college graduation day. "Mom, I'll take care of you from now on," he had said that night, leaning drunkenly on my shoulder. "You've worked hard your whole life. It's time for you to enjoy it." The tears finally broke through. I curled up on the sofa, clutching the album like a child who had lost everything. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the sheer curtains and onto the bed. I opened my eyes, and for a moment, I forgot where I was. It wasn't until I saw the unfamiliar ceiling that I remembered the events of yesterday. After getting ready, I changed into a tasteful navy blue suit and even put on some light makeup. The old woman in the mirror had deep wrinkles, but her eyes were still sharp. That's right. I was the powerhouse who had built a chain of stores from a street stall. How could I let family drama bring me down? The doorbell rang again. This time, it was Jessica. She was wearing a silk nightgown, her hair a mess, clearly having just woken up. Gone was her usual harsh demeanor. Her face was plastered with a fake smile. "Mom, yesterday was all a misunderstanding. Please open the door. We can talk this out." I watched her performance on the monitor, unmoving. "Mom, Chloe misses you. She's been crying all morning." Seeing that I wasn't responding, she started playing the sympathy card. At the mention of Chloe, my heart tightened, but my rational mind told me that giving in now would only make things worse. Jessica lingered outside for half an hour before leaving in a huff. I immediately sent a message to David Peterson, asking him to have someone keep an eye on Chloe to ensure her safety. At noon, while I was reviewing the company's books, the doorbell rang a third time. This time, there were 3 people: Michael, Jessica, and Chloe. The child's eyes were red and swollen. She had clearly been crying for a long time. "Grandma! Grandma!" Chloe wailed, pounding on the door. Her voice was heartbreaking. I couldn't bear it any longer and rushed to the door. But just as my fingers were about to touch the handle, I heard Jessica whisper to Michael, "As soon as we get the condo, change the locks immediately." My hand froze in midair. So that was it. They were after the property. "Chloe," I said softly through the door, "Grandma's right here. Don't be afraid." "Grandma, I want to live with you," the child sobbed. "Chloe Peterson!" Jessica snapped. What nonsense are you talking about? I clenched my fists, my nails digging deep into my palms. Chloe, sweetie, you go back with Mommy and Daddy for now. Grandma promises we'll see each other very soon, okay? Eventually, they left with a crying Chloe. I immediately contacted a private investigator I knew, asking him to monitor Chloe's situation around the clock. In the evening, David Peterson arrived with the information he had gathered. After reading the documents, a chill went through me. The company's books showed a massive deficit, with nearly $2 million funneled to an account under the name Lauren's Luxuries. A new apartment and a Mercedes had suddenly appeared under Jessica's name. But what hurt the most was that Michael had mortgaged the property of the original flagship store 3 months ago, the only asset his father had left for us. Eleanor, should we call the police? David asked, pushing up his glasses. I shook my head. Let's not tip them off just yet. I handed him a file. This is a list of all the assets under my name. I need you to get it notarized. David opened the file, his eyes widening. There's this much. I gave a faint smile. Besides this condo, which is worth over $10 million, I have 3 school district apartments on the south side and a commercial property in a redevelopment zone on the north side. These were all meant to be gifts for Chloe. There's one more thing, I said, opening my laptop and pulling up a security video. The remedy that Jessica knocked over yesterday. I need you to get a sample of it tested. David nodded, carefully taking the sealed bag containing the residue. After he left, I stood by the window, watching the sunset slowly sink below the city's skyline. For the first time in 5 years, I felt completely clear-headed. They thought they had kicked out a burdensome old woman, but what they had unknowingly done was awaken a slumbering lioness. My phone vibrated. It was a message from the private investigator. The child is home safe, but emotionally unstable. Also discovered that Jessica has been frequently visiting a hotel with an unidentified male. Have photographic evidence. I looked at the picture of Jessica being intimate with a strange man, feeling nothing. This family had rotted from the inside out a long time ago. Now, it was time for certain people to pay the price. At 5 o'clock in the morning, my internal clock woke me up as usual. 20 years in the restaurant business had conditioned me to rise at this hour, a habit I couldn't break even after retiring. In the kitchen, I skillfully prepared the ingredients. Angelica root, astragalus, goji berries, the medicinal herbs were laid out neatly on the cutting board. Even though I had left my son's house, I was still worried about Chloe's health. The child had a weak constitution and was prone to getting sick whenever the seasons changed. The water in the clay pot bubbled as I added the prepared herbs one by one. This was my family's ancestral spleen-nourishing soup. My father passed it down to me, and I was supposed to pass it down to Michael's wife. A shame. Shaking off the thought, I set up my phone and started recording the cooking process. Hello everyone, I'm Grandma Eleanor. I smiled at the camera. Today, I'm going to teach you how to make a nourishing soup that strengthens the spleen and stomach. This was an idea that came to me in the middle of the night. Start a short-form video account to share my knowledge of medicinal cuisine. If my son and daughter-in-law didn't need my care, at least these family recipes shouldn't be lost. After uploading the video, I continued to sort through the company's finances. The information from David showed that Jessica's brother, Jason, was the company's largest ingredient supplier. He was providing low-quality herbs at prices 30% higher than the market rate, and Michael had signed off on every single contract. Fool, I couldn't help but curse out loud. These inferior ingredients not only affected the taste but could also make people sick. The reputation Eleanor's Kitchen had built over 20 years was being single-handedly destroyed by him. My phone chimed with a notification. I was surprised to see that the video I had just uploaded already had several hundred likes. The comment section was filled with messages asking Grandma Eleanor to share more. As I scrolled through the enthusiastic responses from strangers, my nose suddenly started to sting. Just as I was about to reply to a comment, the doorbell rang sharply. On the monitor, Michael stood outside, a grim look on his face, holding a stack of papers. "Mom, I know you're in there," he said, pounding on the door. "We need to talk. There's trouble at the company." I frowned and pulled up the security app on my phone. The camera at the company showed several people in uniforms putting up official notices on the door. What was going on? I opened the door, but left the security chain on. When Michael saw me, his eyes lit up for a second before his face fell again. The health department showed up for a surprise inspection. They said our ingredients aren't up to code, and we have to shut down for a review. He waved the papers in his hand. Mom, you know a lot of people. Can you help? I looked at him coldly. Why aren't the ingredients up to standard? There's a problem with that supplier, he stammered, his eyes shifting. But now's not the time to talk about that. Which supplier? Jason? Michael's face turned pale. How? How did you know? I didn't answer, simply dialing the number of Director Williams at the health department right in front of him. He had once been one of my most loyal customers. Bill, it's me, Eleanor, I said, intentionally putting the call on speaker. I heard my son's restaurant got inspected. Eleanor, a warm voice came from the other end. I honestly didn't know it was your family's place. I'll ask about it right away. Michael's eyes were wide as saucers, his mouth opening and closing like a stranded fish. 10 minutes later, Director Williams called back. He said it was a misunderstanding and had already told his people to take down the notices. Michael let out a long sigh of relief, a smile spreading across his face. Mom, thank you so much. I knew you could fix it. Don't be so quick to thank me, I said coldly. I have conditions. Anything. First, terminate the contract with Jason immediately. Second, I want to see Chloe. Third, I stared him in the eye. Tell me where that $2 million went. Michael's face went white, and beads of sweat formed on his forehead. Mom, it's complicated. It's not complicated, I cut him off. Either you tell me the truth, or I'll have those notices put right back up. He hemmed and hawed for a long time before finally collapsing to the ground. It was Jessica, he said, defeated. She said her sister had an investment opportunity, a sure thing. I was a fool. I closed my eyes, a heavy weight pressing on my chest. $2 million. How many years of waking up early and working late had it taken for me to save that much? Mom, I was wrong. Michael grabbed my hand. Please help me. I promise. I'll bring Chloe to see you tomorrow. I shook his hand off. Get out of here. Now. Closing the door, I collapsed in the entryway, feeling as if all my strength had been drained. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from the video platform. My video had gone viral, and my followers had surpassed 10,000. In the comments, someone asked, Grandma Eleanor, my daughter has a weak stomach. Can she drink this soup? I took a deep breath and began to reply thoughtfully. At least here, my knowledge and experience were still valued by someone. In the afternoon, David Peterson brought the test results for the medicinal residue. It contained trace amounts of a laxative. I shot up from my seat. What? Eleanor, who handled this medicine. I immediately pulled up the security footage, replaying the moments before Jessica knocked over the bowl. Zooming in, I could clearly see her sprinkling something into the bowl while my back was turned. Call the police. My voice trembled. She was trying to harm Chloe. Not necessarily, David analyzed. She might have been trying to frame you. If the child got sick, she could blame it on your remedy. A cold chill ran down my spine. To get me out of the house, she was willing to harm Chloe. Just then, the doorbell rang again. This time it was Chloe, standing outside alone, tear tracks on her small face. Grandma! The moment I opened the door, she threw herself into my arms. I don't want to go back. Mommy pinched me. It was only then that I noticed the bruises on her wrist. A surge of fury washed over me. Why did she pinch you? Because I missed you, Chloe sobbed. Daddy said you have a secret house and you're a bad grandma, but I know you're a good person. I held my granddaughter tightly, my heart feeling like it was being twisted by a knife. David quietly took pictures of the bruises on the child's wrist. This would be crucial evidence. After calming Chloe down, I made her favorite red date pastries. The way the child wolfed them down broke my heart. Jessica must not have been feeding her properly again. Chloe, listen to Grandma, I said, kneeling down to her eye level. You go back with Daddy for now. Grandma promises to bring you here to live very soon, okay? Really? Her eyes lit up. Really? I held out my pinky finger. Pinky promise. After Chloe left, I immediately contacted the private investigator, asking him to focus on gathering evidence of Jessica's abuse. At the same time, I registered a trademark for Eleanor's medicinal cuisine, preparing to make a comeback. That evening, my video account's followers surpassed 50,000. A well-known pharmaceutical company sent a collaboration request, interested in jointly developing a line of wellness products. I looked out at the city lights, suddenly feeling like life had given me a second chance. This time, I would not sacrifice my career and dignity for anyone. Late at night, my phone lit up. It was a long text from Michael, filled with remorse and self-blame. At the end, he said he was under too much pressure and the company was about to collapse. I didn't reply. Some lessons have to be learned the hard way to be truly understood. The court summons arrived while I was filming my third medicinal cuisine video. The delivery guy looked at me with sympathy. "Ma'am, are you all right?" I took the envelope. When I saw the plaintiff's name, Michael Peterson, I actually laughed. Good. Very good. This is the wonderful son I raised. The summons was clear. My son was suing me for division of assets, claiming the condo across the hall was marital property. The reasoning was that, since it was purchased after my husband's death, it should be considered joint property, and as the sole heir, he was entitled to a share. Absurd! David Peterson slammed his hand on the table in anger. This property was purchased with your premarital assets. It has nothing to do with him or his father. I, on the other hand, had calmed down. Let's prepare for the lawsuit. Also, find out who gave him this idea. Soon enough, David had the answer. Jessica's sister, Lauren, was a lawyer. She was clearly the one pulling the strings. "Eleanor, we have more than enough evidence to win," David said confidently. "But just to be safe, I suggest—" "No," I interrupted him. "I'm filing a countersuit." David was stunned. On what grounds? Child abuse and malicious prosecution. I pulled up the photos of Chloe's bruised wrist and the security footage of Jessica, adding the laxative to the medicine. Also, look into the company's finances. I suspect embezzlement. David's eyes lit up. Understood. I'll get right on it. After he left, I continued filming. Today's topic was a soup for calming the nerves and aiding sleep. My followers were already asking for the next video in the comments. In just 2 weeks, my account, Grandma Eleanor's Kitchen, had gained 150,000 followers. Many people were sharing how my soup recipes had helped them. After filming, I opened the safe and took out a stack of yellowed receipts. These were all the documents related to the purchase of the luxury condo, from the source of the funds to the renovation invoices. I had always known this day might come, so I had saved every single piece of paper. My phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. Is this Grandma Eleanor?" a young woman asked timidly. "I'm Miss Miller, from Sunshine Preschool. I'm Chloe's teacher." My heart clenched. What's wrong with Chloe? She drew a picture in art class today. The teacher hesitated. "I think you should see it." Half an hour later, I was looking at the drawing. On a piece of paper, a black crayon had colored most of the page. In a corner, a small figure was trapped in a cage. Outside the cage stood a larger figure holding a key. At the top, in shaky letters, were the words "Grandma got kicked out." "Chloe has been very emotionally unstable lately, miss," Miller said with concern. "She has frequent nightmares and refuses to eat her lunch." I carefully folded the drawing, my heart aching. This picture was more powerful evidence than any legal document of who the child truly needed. "Miss Miller, would you be willing to testify in court?" I asked directly. She hesitated for a moment before finally nodding. "For Chloe, I'm willing." Back home, the private investigator sent his latest findings. He had proof of Jessica's affair with her personal trainer, along with chat logs between her and her sister discussing how to ruin the old hag. I scrolled through the messages, my heart growing colder with each one. All this time, without my knowledge, the family had been rotting to its core. Jessica had not only been transferring company funds, but was also planning to make Michael cut ties with me completely to monopolize the assets. The most shocking part was that Michael seemed to be completely unaware, still struggling to save the company. The day before the court hearing, Chloe suddenly showed up at my door. This time, her parents weren't with her, only an embarrassed-looking nanny. Chloe, how did you— Grandma! She threw herself into my arms, her small hands clutching my clothes tightly. I ran away. I quickly brought her inside. The nanny stood at the door, hesitating. Ma'am, if her mother finds out, she'll kill me. Go back for now, I said, slipping her a few $100 bills. Just say you couldn't find her, understand? The nanny hesitated, then nodded and left. Closing the door, I immediately checked Chloe for new injuries. Sure enough, I found several pinch marks on her back, already turning blue. Who did this? I asked, suppressing my rage. Mommy. Chloe lowered her head. She said you're a bad person and you want to steal our house. I didn't believe her, so she pinched me. I hugged my granddaughter tightly, the tears finally streaming down my face. At that moment, I made a resolution. No matter the cost, I would rescue Chloe from that hellhole. Grandma, I don't want to go back, Chloe sobbed in my arms. You can stay here tonight, I said softly. Grandma will make you your favorite food. That evening, I made Chloe the spleen-nourishing soup and red date pastries. The child ate with such relish it was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. At her own home, she couldn't even get a decent meal. Just as I was putting Chloe to bed, the doorbell rang frantically. On the monitor, Jessica and Michael stood outside looking panicked. Mom, is Chloe with you? Michael's voice came through the door. I gently closed the bedroom door and walked to the entryway. Yes. She's staying here tonight. No way, Jessica screamed. Michael Peterson, your mother is kidnapping her. Call the police. Go ahead, I sneered. It'll be a great opportunity for the police to see the bruises on the child's body. There was silence from outside. A moment later, Michael's voice was pleading. Mom, the hearing is tomorrow. This isn't good for anyone. So you do remember the hearing is tomorrow, I retorted. When you decided to sue your own mother, did you think about whether that was good? Get lost. I cut her off. I'll see you in court. Turning off the monitor, I went back to the bedroom. Chloe was already asleep, tear stains still on her little face. I gently wiped them away and lay down beside her. Tomorrow would be a tough battle. But for Chloe, I would never back down. In court, Lauren, acting as Michael's lawyer, aggressively questioned me about concealing assets. I listened calmly, then had David Peterson present the proof of funds for the purchase. This property was purchased in 2018, using my client's premarital savings and an inheritance from her family, David said, pushing up his glasses. It has no connection to the plaintiff's father. Lauren, not giving up, argued that even so, as the sole person responsible for my care, Michael should be entitled to a portion of the property. The judge frowned. Plaintiff, have you been providing care for the defendant? Michael stammered, unable to answer. At that moment, David dropped the bombshell. The photos of Chloe's injuries and the drawing of Grandma got kicked out. The defendant requests a change in custody. David's voice boomed. We have ample evidence that the plaintiff and his wife have not only neglected their filial duties, but have also abused their child. Lauren's face paled, and she quickly objected that this was irrelevant to the case. But the judge was intrigued and asked to see the evidence. When the photos of the bruises were projected onto the large screen, a gasp went through the courtroom. Michael stared, his eyes wide with disbelief at the bruises. That's not real. Jessica shrieked. She forged the evidence. The judge banged his gavel. Order! He turned to Michael. Plaintiff, were you aware of this? Michael's face was ashen, his lips trembling, unable to speak. Just then, the courtroom doors opened, and Chloe walked in, led by Miss Miller. Your Honor, Miss Miller said bravely, I am Chloe's teacher. I can testify that the child has been emotionally distressed recently and has repeatedly expressed fear of her mother. Lauren immediately objected, calling it irrelevant testimony. But the judge allowed Miss Miller to continue. Chloe once told me that her mother pinches her because she says she misses her grandma. Miss Miller's voice choked with emotion. As an educator, I believe what the child needs most right now is— Objection! Lauren interrupted again. The judge thought for a moment and declared a recess, to reconvene at a later date. Before leaving, Michael gave me a complicated look, as if he wanted to say something, but was dragged away by Jessica. I picked up Chloe and whispered in her ear, "Grandma will protect you. Always." After the court recessed, the media swarmed like sharks that had smelled blood. Someone must have leaked the story, because the next day, the headline "Businessman Evic's Mother, Exposed for Abusing Daughter" was on the front page of the local news. I held Chloe and stood by the window, watching the reporters gathered downstairs. My phone had been ringing off the hook with interview requests, calls from concerned old friends, and even relatives I hadn't heard from in years suddenly checking in. "Grandma, are those people here to take pictures of us?" Chloe asked, her head on my shoulder. "Don't worry, they'll be gone soon," I said, patting her back as I drew the curtains. David Peterson called to say that reporters were also camped outside Michael's company, and business had come to a complete halt. To make matters worse, the health department had shown up again, this time finding even more issues with the ingredients. "Eleanor, the IRS, is also getting involved." David's voice was tinged with excitement. Jason confessed everything about Jessica. He said she was the one who instructed him to use substandard products. I sneered. "And where are they now?" "In hiding." Michael, however, just called me. "He wants to see you." "No," I refused flatly. "Not unless he drops the lawsuit and makes a public apology." After hanging up, I turned on the television. The local news was covering the family dispute. On screen, Michael was miserably dodging reporters. Jessica used her handbag to shield her face as she scrambled into a car. When reporters interviewed people on the street, most expressed sympathy for me. The old woman raised the child. "It's not easy, and no matter what, you can't hit a child," were the common sentiments. My short-form video account's followers shot up to 300,000 overnight. Under my latest video for Calming Soup, in addition to the usual wellness discussions, there were countless messages of support. "Stay strong, Grandma Eleanor. Sons and daughters-in-law like that deserve to be exposed," was a recurring comment. As I was browsing the comments, a private message popped up. "Miss Eleanor, I am the Director of Research and Development at a pharmaceutical company. I'm very interested in your medicinal cuisine formulas. Would you be open to discussing a collaboration?" I jotted down the contact information but didn't reply immediately. The most important thing right now was Chloe's custody. Business could wait. The doorbell rang suddenly. The security monitor showed a community worker and a woman in a uniform. "Mrs. Eleanor," the worker said kindly, "this is Miss Wright from the Child Protective Association. She'd like to talk to you about Chloe." I hesitated for a moment, then opened the door. Miss Wright was in her early 40s, with a gentle expression. She knelt to be at eye level with Chloe. "Sweetie, can you tell me what your favorite food is?" "Grandma's red date pastries," Chloe answered without hesitation. Miss Wright smiled and nodded, then turned to me. "Ma'am, we received a report from the school about bruises on the child. May we see them?" I carefully rolled up Chloe's sleeve, revealing the marks. "Miss," Wright drew a sharp breath and quickly took photos. "Based on our initial assessment, we believe it's not advisable for the child to return to her parents' care at this time," she said sternly. "Are you willing to continue looking after her?" "Of course," I said, holding Chloe tight. "She is my everything." After they left, I let out a long sigh of relief. At least until the legal proceedings were over, Chloe would be safe with me. In the afternoon, I took Chloe to the hospital for a full checkup. The doctor was a kind elderly woman. When she saw the bruises on the child, her brow furrowed. "Malnourished, with multiple soft tissue contusions," she wrote in her report. "Do you need me to call the police?" "We're already in the legal process," I explained. The doctor nodded, prescribed some vitamins and an ointment, and then discreetly gave me a phone number. "My daughter works at a TV station. She's planning a special report on domestic violence. Would you be willing to be interviewed?" I had intended to refuse, but then I thought about how it might help other children like Chloe, so I agreed to consider it. On the way home, Chloe whispered in my ear, "Grandma, I don't want to go to school." "Why not?" "All the kids are asking if my mommy and daddy are bad people," she said in a small voice, "and some of them said, 'I'm a kid nobody wants.'" My heart twisted into a knot. The wars of adults always end up hurting the most innocent ones. "Chloe, remember, no matter what happens, Grandma will always love you." I kissed her forehead. "You are not a child nobody wants. You are Grandma's treasure." That night, Michael sent a text. "Mom, the company is finished." Jessica ran off with the money. "Please, help me." I didn't reply. It was painful to see the son who was once so full of life now brought so low, but he had to pay the price for his choices to truly grow up. Late at night, I quietly got up and went to the study. On the computer screen, the private investigator had sent the latest update. Jessica had been stopped at the airport trying to leave the country with $50,000 in cash. Even more explosive was the news that she was 2 months pregnant, and based on the timing, the child couldn't possibly be Michael's. I stared at the screen, unsure how to react. The woman who had kicked me out of my home was now disgraced. It was her just desserts. But Michael, did he know he was about to lose a child for the second time? The next morning, David Peterson called in a hurry. "Eleanor, Michael has withdrawn the lawsuit." He also posted a public apology. I opened my computer and, sure enough, found the post on a local forum under Michael's real name. It was a long article, detailing how he had been manipulated by his wife and her family, how he had wronged his mother, and finally, begging the public for a chance to start over. "Mom, I know I was wrong," the post concluded. "I don't dare ask for your forgiveness, only for a chance to make amends." I closed the computer, my heart a mix of emotions. Just then, Chloe walked in, rubbing her eyes. "Grandma, I dreamt that Daddy was crying." I picked her up and suddenly made a decision. "Chloe, do you want to see Daddy?" The child hesitated, then nodded slightly. "How about Grandma invites him over for dinner?" Chloe's eyes lit up, then dimmed again. "What about Mommy?" "Just Daddy." I kissed her cheek. "Our little secret." Michael arrived faster than I expected. The doorbell rang just as I was finishing up a 4-course meal. When I opened the door, his haggard appearance shocked me. His eyes were sunken, he hadn't shaved, and his suit was wrinkled. He looked nothing like the successful man he once was. "Mom," he choked out, not daring to step inside. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. "Chloe is waiting for you." At the sound of his daughter's name, Michael's tears finally broke free. He stumbled in and knelt on the floor, hugging Chloe as she ran to him, crying like a child. "Daddy was wrong. Daddy is so sorry," he repeated over and over, kissing Chloe's hair. I stood by, my eyes welling up. In that moment, I saw the little boy from 30 years ago who would run into my arms to apologize after doing something wrong. At the dinner table, Michael ate ravenously, clearly not having had a proper meal in a long time. I silently served him a second bowl of soup. "This is a recipe to calm the nerves and help digestion. I made it specially for you." "How's the company?" I asked softly. He put down his bowl and gave a bitter smile. "It's finished. The employees haven't been paid, and suppliers are at the door demanding money." He paused. "Mom, I can't pay you back that $2 million. Let's not talk about money right now." I waved my hand. "What do you know about Jessica's situation?" His face changed. You know? She's pregnant. It's not yours." Michael's face went deathly white, his hands trembling so much he couldn't hold his chopsticks. Chloe looked at her father with concern, sweetly placing her small hand on his. I should have known," he muttered to himself. "All those late nights, those unexplained expenses." I didn't add to his misery, only saying calmly, "Eat, the food is getting cold." After dinner, Chloe was watching TV in the living room while Michael and I stood on the balcony. "Mom," he said, his head down, "I don't know how I can ever make this up to you." "Do you know why I was able to buy this condo?" I asked suddenly. He shook his head, puzzled. "Because I never put all my eggs in one basket. After your father passed away, I ran the restaurant while secretly investing in real estate. All those years, I only slept 4 hours a night, just to save a little more for you." Michael's shoulders slumped, "And I destroyed 20 years of your hard work." "Money lost can be earned again," I turned to him. "But if you lose your conscience, you've truly lost everything." He dropped to his knees with a thud, hugging my legs. "Mom, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." I stroked his hair, just as I did when he was a child. The son who had broken my heart, his remorse at this moment was so real. "Get up," I said softly. "Tomorrow, go take care of things at the company." Pay what needs to be paid, and take responsibility for what you've done. And then? He looked up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. And then, we start over. I smiled slightly. But this time, you'll listen to me. The morning sun streamed through the sheer curtains into the bedroom. I got up quietly, not wanting to wake Chloe sleeping soundly beside me. After Michael left last night, she had clutched my shirt tightly, only falling into a restless sleep late into the night. In the kitchen, while simmering millet porridge, I reviewed the documents David Peterson had sent. Jessica had confessed to everything in custody, from her affair to embezzling company funds, and even how she and her sister conspired to drive a wedge between Michael and me. What shocked me the most was her admission of deliberately putting laxatives in the medicine to create the illusion that Grandma's remedy made the granddaughters sick. And the bruises on Chloe were because the child kept saying at preschool how Grandma is the best, which infuriated her. Monster. I trembled with anger, nearly knocking over the pot of porridge. I took a few deep breaths to calm myself and continued preparing breakfast. The doorbell rang. On the monitor was Michael's exhausted face. It was only 7 in the morning, but his eyes were bloodshot. He clearly hadn't slept all night. The moment the door opened, he fell to his knees. "Mom, I checked the company accounts. It's worse than I thought." I helped him up and handed him a cup of hot tea. "Tell me slowly." It turned out that, after leaving last night, Michael had gone through all the books and discovered that in addition to the $2 million already known, Jessica had also taken out high-interest loans in the company's name. The loan sharks were now coming after him. "Mom, I'm ruined," he said, holding his head in his hands. "My signature is on those loan agreements, but I had no idea." "Have you had the signature authenticated?" I asked suddenly. He looked up sharply. "You mean?" "Eat first." I pushed the porridge and side dishes in front of him. "When Chloe wakes up, we'll figure this out together." Michael lowered his head to eat, but large tears fell into the bowl. The son who was once so full of life was now completely broken by reality. When Chloe woke up and saw her father was still there, she happily jumped into his arms. Watching the two of them, I quietly snapped a photo. No matter what mistakes the adults made, a child's love for their parents is always pure and forgiving. After breakfast, I contacted David Peterson and a handwriting expert. At the same time, the private investigator brought even more explosive news. A DNA test confirmed the baby Jessica was carrying belonged to her personal trainer. And what was more horrifying, the affair had started when she was pregnant with Chloe. Which means Michael's face was ashen. Chloe might not be. "No, Chloe is yours," I said firmly. "She looks exactly like you did as a child." To be certain, I scheduled a paternity test. Michael held Chloe and wept uncontrollably. Although the child didn't understand what was happening, she sweetly wiped her father's tears. In the afternoon, the three of us went to the company. The once bustling restaurant was now deserted, with a few employees sitting around listlessly. When they saw us, they immediately surrounded us, demanding their wages. "Everyone," I raised my voice, "you will be paid every cent you are owed, but I need a little time. For those willing to stay, I, Eleanor Peterson, guarantee you will be treated well. For those who wish to leave, you will be paid in full within 3 days." The employees looked at each other. An old chef emotionally grabbed my hand. "Ma'am, you're back. We're saved." Michael looked at me in astonishment. I patted his hand. "Let's go to the office and get all the account books." We spent the entire afternoon sorting through the company's finances. As each messy account was untangled, a terrible truth emerged. Jessica and her brother had embezzled at least $5 million over the years. The company was nothing but an empty shell. "Mom," Michael's voice trembled, I'm going to jail." "So you realize your mistake now," I said, not looking up from the books. "I know," he choked out. "I betrayed your trust. I deserve to lose everything." I didn't comfort him. Some lessons have to be learned through gut-wrenching pain to be remembered. That evening, the paternity test results came back. Chloe was indeed Michael's biological daughter. He held the report, crying and laughing at the same time, while Chloe, oblivious, just kissed her father's cheek. Just as we were getting ready for bed, the doorbell rang again. On the monitor, Lauren stood outside with 2 strangers, her expression grim. "Mom, "Don't open the door," Michael said nervously. "She's definitely up to no good." I shook my head and pressed the intercom button. "What is it?" "Eleanor Peterson," Lauren's sharp voice said. "Your son is suspected of embezzlement. My client intends to press charges. Unless what? Unless you give up custody of Chloe and transfer ownership of the condo to my sister." I let out a cold laugh. "See you in court." After turning off the monitor, Michael was shaking with rage. "Shameless. They're the ones who—" "Don't worry." I opened my laptop and played a recording. "Listen to this." In the audio, Jessica clearly admitted to the entire conspiracy, including how her sister taught her to transfer assets and drive a wedge between mother and son. David had managed to obtain the recording from the detention center. It would be our trump card. The next day, the court convened to decide Chloe's custody. As expected, Lauren argued that Michael was unfit to be a parent due to his alleged financial crimes. Just as the judge was considering this, David presented the audio evidence. The courtroom erupted. Lauren's face turned ashen when she heard her sister's voice say, "My sister just wants to ruin the Peterson family and take everything for herself." She jumped to her feet. "That's a forgery." "Order!" The judge banged his gavel and played the recording for the court. As more of Jessica's confession was revealed, the murmuring in the gallery grew louder. Someone even shouted, "Vicious woman!" Finally, the judge declared a recess for deliberation. Half an hour later, the verdict was in. Custody of Chloe was granted to me, with Michael having visitation rights. The court would also be launching a criminal investigation into Jessica and her brother. As we left the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Michael shielded Chloe and me as we quickly made our way out. Lauren wasn't so lucky. She was mobbed by reporters, with some shouting questions about whether she had coached her sister in adultery and fraud. Back home, Michael suddenly knelt before me. "Mom, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Get up." I helped him to his feet. To err is human, to forgive, divine. Chloe, mimicking me, stood on her tiptoes and patted her father's head. "Divine," she repeated. The three of us laughed. It was a warmth this family hadn't felt in a very long time. That evening, I received a formal collaboration offer from the pharmaceutical company. They valued my medicinal cuisine recipes and brand at $20 million and wanted to co-develop a product line. I agreed on one condition. The brand had to be named after Chloe, Eleanor, and Chloe's Kitchen. That name would grow with the company, becoming the best coming-of-age gift for my granddaughter. 3 days after the court's decision, Jessica was released on bail. The first thing she did was not repent, but storm over to the apartment Michael was temporarily renting to cause a scene. I was at an indoor playground with Chloe when I got a call from Michael. In the background, I could hear Jessica's hysterical screaming. "Michael Peterson, you and your mother conspired against me. I'll ruin you." "Mom, don't come over," Michael whispered urgently. "She's lost her mind." "Send me the address," I said firmly, then contacted David Peterson and the private investigator. By the time I arrived at the apartment building with Chloe, a police car was already parked outside. Upstairs, the scene made my blood pressure spike. Jessica, with her hair disheveled, was smashing furniture. Michael had several scratches on his face, and police officers were trying to restrain her. "Grandma," Chloe whimpered, hiding behind me. When Jessica saw us, she suddenly grew quiet, a strange smile on her face. "You won, old hag? Let me tell you, it's not that simple." She turned to the police. "I want to report a crime. Michael Peterson embezzled company funds, and his mother was his accomplice." The officer looked at me, troubled. "Ma'am." "Officer," I said calmly, "the court has already heard this case. There is ample evidence that my daughter-in-law and her sister were the ones embezzling." I took out my phone. "Furthermore, I have a recording of her threatening to kill my entire family just 10 minutes ago." Jessica's face changed. "You're lying. When did I?" Her own screams echoed clearly from my phone. "I'll make sure your whole family dies a miserable death." The police officers immediately became serious and handcuffed Jessica. As they led her away, she turned and shot me a venomous look. "You just wait, you old hag." The storm had passed for now, but Michael's spirits hit rock bottom. He sat amidst the wreckage of the apartment, his eyes empty. "Mom, How could I have married a person like that? Because you were a fool, I said bluntly, picking up shards of glass from the floor. Blinded by a pretty face, you even turned your back on your own mother. He hung his head in shame, then noticed Chloe picking up pieces of a photograph from the floor. It was our family portrait, torn to shreds by Jessica. Grandma, Chloe handed me the pieces. Fix it. I took the fragments, my heart aching. Some things, once broken, can never be put back together. Daddy was wrong, Michael said, hugging Chloe, tears streaming down his face. Daddy is so sorry to you and Grandma. Chloe used her small hands to wipe away his tears. Daddy, don't cry. Grandma says it's okay to make mistakes if you learn from them. Michael looked up at me, his eyes full of complex emotions. I sighed and dialed a number. Mr. Johnson? My son is looking for a temporary place to stay. Half an hour later, Michael moved into the guest room of my luxury condo. It was his first time truly seeing this secret base, and he was left speechless. Mom, this is all yours? He asked, touching the leather sofa and looking at the famous paintings on the wall. It's ours now, I said, handing him a cup of hot tea. From now on, you'll come with me to the company every day and learn how to run a business. Michael's eyes widened. But the company is already... I've invested $3 million to keep it afloat for now, I said matter-of-factly. The old staff have all come back. They're just waiting for their CEO to get back on his feet. Mom. He fell to his knees. I'm not worthy. Get up. I pulled him to his feet. Remember this lesson. Be a good person and do good work. That night, after putting Chloe to bed, I found Michael standing on the balcony, lost in thought. In the moonlight, his silhouette looked so lonely. Mom. He heard my footsteps but didn't turn around. Why are you still willing to help me? Because you are my son. I stood beside him. What mother in this world would ever truly give up on her child? He turned and hugged me, crying like a child who had been lost for years and finally found his way home. The next morning, the three of us had breakfast together, like a real family. Chloe sat between Michael and me, chattering away about her day at preschool. Though Michael tried to keep up his spirits, the shadows under his eyes told me he hadn't recovered from the blow. On the way to the company, he suddenly asked, Mom, how long will Jessica be in prison? Depending on the investigation, at least 5 years. I glanced at him. What? You still have feelings for her? No, he shook his head. It's just 10 years of marriage. How did it come to this? I didn't answer. Some paths he had to figure out on his own. At the company, the old employees had mixed expressions when they saw Michael. The once dashing young boss now followed me like a student who had made a mistake. Everyone. I stood in the center of the restaurant. Starting today, I will be the acting general manager. Michael will start over from the bottom. We are reopening the old store, and we will rebuild our reputation. Do you have confidence? Yes. The employees responded in unison. The following days were busy but fulfilling. Every day, I took Michael through every department, from purchasing to the kitchen, from the front desk to accounting, teaching him the business step by step. He was a diligent student, no longer the arrogant and impractical young man he used to be. In the evenings, we would help Chloe with her homework and play games together. Sometimes, I would wake up in the middle of the night for a glass of water and see him in the study, poring over recipes and financial reports. A month later, the collaboration with the pharmaceutical company officially began. At the signing ceremony, I specifically asked Michael to give the speech. Facing the media cameras, his palms were sweaty with nerves, but his performance was commendable. Eleanor and Chloe's kitchen will uphold the philosophy of combining tradition with innovation. His voice grew steadier. I want to thank my mother, Mrs. Eleanor Peterson, for her trust and support. The applause was thunderous. I smiled as I watched my son, seeing a reflection of his father in his youth. However, the good times didn't last. On the eve of Jessica's trial, her sister Lauren started spreading vicious rumors in the media, claiming I abused my daughter-in-law and controlled my son. The company's recently improved reputation was once again tarnished. To make matters worse, Chloe was teased at preschool. "Your mommy is a bad person," another child said, and she came home crying, refusing to go to school. "Mom, let's sue them for defamation," Michael said angrily. I shook my head. The truth will speak for itself. The next day, I took Chloe to the TV station for the interview with the doctor's daughter. There were no accusations, no playing the victim. I simply told the story of a single mother's hardship in starting a business and how love can resolve family crises. "Finally, I want to say something to my granddaughter," I said, hugging Chloe and looking into the camera. "Grandma loves you. No matter what happens, home will always be your safe harbor." After the program aired, public opinion completely sided with us. Lauren's lies fell apart, and even her law firm issued a statement distancing themselves from her. On the day of the trial, our whole family went. When Jessica saw Michael, a flicker of hope crossed her eyes, but when she realized her husband wouldn't even look at her, her face turned pale. The evidence was irrefutable. The judge sentenced Jessica to 6 years in prison for embezzlement and child abuse. Her sister, Lauren, received a 4-year sentence for abetting a crime and perjury. After the sentencing, Jessica suddenly screamed at me, "You won, old hag. But don't get too proud. Your son is a loser. Without you, he's nothing." As the bailiffs dragged her away, Michael stood up and said calmly, "Jessica, you're right. I wasn't good enough, but I will work hard to be a son my mother can be proud of." On the way home, Michael was silent. It wasn't until we were inside that he suddenly said, "Mom, I want a fresh start." "How so?" "I want to file for divorce," he said with difficulty. "And then I want to start from the very bottom at the company and really learn the business." I patted his hand, gratified. "Good." That night, I had a dream. I saw my late husband standing in the sunlight, smiling at me. "Eleanor," he said, "you've done well." I woke up to a tear-soaked pillow. Outside the window, the sun was rising. The day the divorce was finalized, Michael locked himself in his room all day. I understood his pain. A 10-year marriage, no matter how bitter the end, always leaves behind some sweet memories that are hard to let go of. In the evening, I made him a bowl of calming soup and left it outside his door. When I checked in the middle of the night, the bowl was empty, placed on a chair outside his room. The next morning, he appeared in the kitchen, dressed in a neat chef's uniform. "Mom, I want to try a new dish today." I looked at the dark circles under his eyes, knowing he hadn't slept, but his gaze was clearer than ever. "All right," I said, tying on my apron. "I'll be your assistant." Chloe heard us and ran in, wanting to help too. The 3 of us crowded into the kitchen and made a lavish breakfast. Michael's fried eggs were a little burnt, but Chloe ate them with gusto, praising her daddy's cooking skills. At the table, Michael made an announcement. "Mom, I want to move into the company dormitory." My chopsticks paused. "Why?" "I need to be independent," he said seriously. "This past half-year learning from you, I've realized my own shortcomings. But as long as I rely on you, I'll never truly grow up." I looked into his determined eyes and suddenly realized my son had truly changed. The old Michael would run to his mother for help with every problem. The new him had learned to take responsibility. "All right," I nodded. "But you have to come home for dinner on weekends." "Definitely," he smiled, fine lines appearing at the corners of his eyes. "I still have to help Chloe with her homework." And so, Michael moved out. He truly started from the bottom, arriving earliest and leaving latest every day, diligently working his way through every position from dishwasher to prep cook. The employees gradually changed their opinion of him, privately calling him the reborn young Mr. Peterson. As for me, I managed the company, took care of Chloe, and recorded my medicinal cuisine videos in my spare time. Amidst the busyness, Grandma Eleanor's kitchen surpassed 1 million followers, and the first batch of products launched with the pharmaceutical company sold out almost instantly. One weekend, Michael took Chloe to an amusement park, and I had some rare free time to tidy up. In the back of a drawer, I found an old envelope. Inside was an essay Michael had written in elementary school, titled, "My Mom. My mom is the best mom in the world. She wakes up at 3 o'clock every morning to make steamed buns, and her hands are covered in burns. I asked her if it hurts, and she said no, because I am her painkiller." Tears blurred my vision. The grateful child had finally returned. Just as I was lost in thought, the phone rang. It was the prison, saying Jessica wanted to see me. Did she say why? Only that she has something important to tell you about your son. After much hesitation, I went. In the visiting room, Jessica was wearing a prison uniform, her face bare. She looked better than she ever did with heavy makeup. "I didn't think you'd actually come," she sneered. "Still pretending to be the good guy, old hag." "Get to the point," I said, my face impassive. She suddenly lowered her voice. "You think your son has really changed? Let me tell you, behind your back he—" "Jessica," I cut her off. "Nothing you say can change the fact that you are in here while he is out there trying to live a better life." Her expression flickered, then she laughed. "Fine. Then listen to this. Your son can't have children. Chloe isn't his at all." I shot to my feet. "Nonsense. Don't believe me? Go check for yourself," she said smugly. "I did IVF to keep him tied down. The sperm was from my trainer. The medical records are still at the hospital." I suppressed my shock and said calmly, "Jessica, you are truly beyond saving." As I turned to leave, her handcuffs rattled. "You old hag, your family line ends with you. Ha 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 ha." When I got home, I immediately contacted the private investigator to verify her claims. The days waiting for the results were sleepless nights. Yet I had to pretend everything was normal in front of Michael and Chloe. A week later, the report came. Jessica was partially telling the truth. Michael did have a congenital condition that made natural conception difficult. However, Chloe's DNA was a 99.99% match to his. She was, indeed, his biological daughter. Medically, miracles like this happen occasionally, the doctor explained. It's like winning the lottery, low probability, but not impossible. I let out a long sigh of relief, but then a new worry for Michael crept in. How devastated would he be if he knew he had almost lost Chloe forever? After careful consideration, I decided to keep this a secret. Some truths are better left unknown. Time flew by, and it was Chloe's birthday. Michael planned an elaborate party, inviting her entire class. Watching my granddaughter laughing among her friends, Michael and I exchanged a smile. "Mom, thank you," Michael said suddenly after the party. "Thank me for what?" "For not giving up on me." His eyes were red. "Without you, I don't know where I'd be now." "Silly boy," I patted his hand. "A mother is always there." That night, I made a decision. The next morning, I called a meeting with the company's senior management. "Starting today, Michael Peterson will resume his role as general manager," I announced. "I will serve only as an advisor, involved only in major decisions." Michael looked at me, shocked. "Mom, I'm not ready." "You are ready," I said firmly. "Everyone has seen your performance over the past 6 months." The old employees nodded in agreement. After the meeting, Michael hugged me, his eyes red. "Mom, I won't let you down." "I know," I smiled, letting him go. "By the way, the pharmaceutical company's annual gala is next week. I want you to represent me." "But, such an important event." "You are my son," I said, adjusting his tie. "Sooner or later, you have to stand on your own 2 feet." And so, I gradually handed over the reins to Michael. He did not disappoint. The company's performance steadily improved, and the reopened flagship store was bustling with customers. What made me even prouder was that he took Chloe to volunteer at a local charity every week, saying he wanted to cultivate a sense of gratitude in her. On a weekend in late autumn, the 3 of us went for a picnic in the countryside. The autumn leaves were like fire. Chloe ran across the meadow, her laughter as crisp as bells. "Mom," Michael said suddenly, "I want to start a foundation." "What kind of foundation?" "To help single mothers and left-behind children," he said, looking at Chloe in the distance. "I owe so much to you and Chloe. I want to make it up in this way." My heart warmed. "That's a wonderful idea. I've even thought of a name. The Eleanor Peterson Charitable Foundation." I shook my head. "That's too flashy." "No, Mom," he said seriously. "I want everyone to know that I am proud of you." An autumn leaf drifted down, and I caught it in my hand. Once, my greatest wish was simply for my son to understand my sacrifices. Now, not only did he understand, he wanted to pass that love on to others. Perhaps this is the most beautiful cycle of life. On the day the Eleanor Peterson Charitable Foundation was established, Many media outlets were present. Michael, dressed in a sharp suit, stood on stage, recounting the hardships of being raised by a single mother and the Foundation's mission to help vulnerable groups. My mother taught me, his voice choked with emotion, that love is not about taking, but about giving. That a home is not a house, but a sanctuary for the heart. Thunderous applause erupted from the audience. I sat in the front row, watching my son speak confidently under the spotlight, feeling as if it were a lifetime ago. 6 months ago, he was a puppet manipulated by his wife and her family. Now, he had found his own backbone. After the event, a representative from the pharmaceutical company approached us to propose an additional investment to expand production. During the negotiations, Michael displayed a professionalism and composure that made me nod in approval. He had finally grown up. On the way home, Chloe fell asleep in the back seat. Michael suddenly said, "Mom, Jessica wrote me a letter." My heart tightened. What did she say? An apology? He gave a bitter smile. She said she regrets how she treated you and Chloe and hopes I can forgive her. I wrote back and said that forgiveness doesn't matter anymore. What's important is that we all move forward. He paused. Mom, I hired a good lawyer for her to try to get her sentence reduced. You don't mind, do you? I shook my head. You did the right thing. Forgiveness is the best gift you can give yourself. It took me 70 years to understand that lesson, but my son had learned it early through his own hardship. When the first snow of winter fell, we moved back into the luxury condo across the hall. Michael personally designed the renovations, placing my bedroom in the sunniest spot and creating a dreamlike princess room for Chloe. Grandma, are we going to live here forever? Chloe asked, running excitedly from room to room. Yes, this is our forever home, I said, tying her undone pigtail. Michael stood by the window, lost in thought, gazing at the snowy landscape. I walked over to stand beside him. What are you thinking about? About everything that's happened this year, he said softly. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and think it was all a dream. I patted his arm. Go make a pot of tea. Mom wants some of your dragon well. He immediately sprang into action. Boiling water, warming cups, rinsing the tea leaves, his movements meticulous. I remember when he was little, I taught him how to make tea, telling him, tea is like life. The ups and downs are all part of the flavor. Now, he had finally savored its true taste. Amidst the fragrant tea, the doorbell rang. It was David Peterson, holding a thick file. Eleanor, it's all done, he said, handing me the documents. As you requested, all the documents for the company's shares, properties, and the foundation have been re-notarized. I opened the file and signed my name on the last page. Michael leaned over curiously. Mom, what's this? A gift for you, I said with a smile, handing it to him. Starting today, 70% of the company shares belong to you, 20% to Chloe, and the remaining 10% will be distributed as bonuses to the longtime employees. Michael's eyes widened. Then what about you? I'm retiring, I said, taking a leisurely sip of tea. From now on, I'll just look after my granddaughter, tend to my flowers, and maybe film a video now and then. No, he stood up in protest. The company can't run without you. Silly boy. I pulled him back down. You're much better at this than I am. Mom is old. It's time to enjoy life. His eyes reddened, and he hugged me tightly. Mom. All right now, I patted his back. Go check if Chloe has finished her homework. As David was leaving, he quietly said to me, Eleanor, that was a brilliant move. Letting go is the best form of education. I smiled without a word. In truth, there was no grand strategy. It was just a mother's instinct. When a fledgling is ready to fly, you must give it the entire sky. Before the Lunar New Year, Michael suggested we visit our old hometown. Since moving to the city, I hadn't been back in over a decade. The old house was dilapidated, but the ancient locust tree in front of it still stood tall. Michael and Chloe dug up a metal box from under the tree. Inside were his childhood treasures, a few glass marbles, a family photo, and a short poem his father had written on a cigarette pack. Grandma, is this Grandpa? Chloe asked, pointing to the handsome young man in the photo. Yes, it is. I gently stroked the picture. If Grandpa could see you now, he would have adored you. With red-rimmed eyes, Michael read his father's poem aloud. It was written for me. Eleanor, like tea, pure and fragrant. To have you in this life is the greatest fortune. On the drive back to the city, Chloe fell asleep. Michael suddenly said, "Mom, I want to fix up the old house. We can take Chloe back there more often." "That's a good idea," I said, watching the scenery fly by. Home is where the heart is. We had New Year's Eve dinner at home. Michael cooked a feast of 8 dishes and a soup. Although it wasn't as good as mine, Chloe ate heartily, calling her daddy a great chef. After dinner, we sat by the window watching the fireworks. "Grandma, look." Chloe pointed to the sky. "Doesn't that one look like the little bunny you taught me to make?" "It does. It really does," I said, holding her close, feeling the warmth of her small body. Michael made us osmanthus tea and suddenly knelt on one knee. "Mom, Happy New Year. Thank you for giving me a second life." I helped him up, and the 3 of us hugged tightly. Outside, the fireworks were spectacular. Inside, it was warm and cozy. At that moment, I finally understood that the warmth of a home isn't determined by its size, but by the closeness of the hearts within it. When spring arrived, my life settled into a comfortable rhythm. I would take Chloe to school in the morning, visit the foundation during the day, pick her up in the afternoon, and sometimes live stream a cooking class in the evening. Michael ran the company with great success, even expanding into online business. Every Friday, without fail, he would take Chloe to volunteer at an orphanage, his eyes shining when he talked about the children's progress. In April, news came from the prison that Jessica had her sentence reduced for good behavior. Michael visited her once. He came back and said she had changed a lot and had asked him to apologize to me on her behalf. "Mom, she said she wants to start fresh in the South after she's released," Michael said, carefully watching my reaction. I nodded. To err is human. Everyone deserves a second chance. In truth, I no longer hated Jessica. Without her betrayal, Michael might never have grown up. Without that turmoil, our mother-son bond would not be as strong as it is now. In May, the first physical store for our collaboration opened, named Eleanor and Chloe's Wellness. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Michael and I stood on either side of Chloe, watching her expertly snip the red ribbon, my heart swelling with pride. That night, before bed, Chloe suddenly asked me, "Grandma, will you love me forever?" "I will," I kissed her forehead. "Forever and a day." She smiled contentedly and quickly fell asleep. I gently closed her door and found Michael standing in the hallway, holding a small box. "Mom, this is for you." He opened it. Inside was an old key. "Remember this?" I took the key and recognized it immediately. It was the key to the lock they had changed, the lock that had once kept me out. I had the original lock restored. Michael's voice was thick with emotion. "Mom, you can always come home." "Silly boy," I patted his cheek. "Mom has been home for a long time." In the summer, our family went to the beach. The turquoise sea stretched to the horizon. Chloe collected seashells on the sand, while Michael helped her build sandcastles. I sat under a large umbrella, watching them play, suddenly remembering 30 years ago when I had watched Michael and his father play on this very same beach. Time flows like water, and life is like a song. The pains of the past have now become nourishment for the soul. After returning from the beach, I made another decision: to officially transfer the ownership of the luxury condo to Chloe. On the day of the signing, the lawyer joked, "Ma'am, aren't you afraid your son will have an issue with this?" "My son?" I glanced at Michael beside me. He dotes on Chloe even more than I do. Michael smiled and nodded. "My mom is right. Besides, everything I have will be Chloe's someday anyway." That evening, Michael told me mysteriously that he had something to show me. He opened his laptop. On the screen was a beautifully designed corporate branding proposal. The main visual was a silhouette of a grandmother, father, and daughter. The brand name was Eleanor's Legacy. "Mom, this is our new project," he explained excitedly. "It focuses on family warmth and traditional wellness." Watching him, so full of passion, I thought back to 20 years ago when I was selling my remedies at a small street stall. Now, my son had not only inherited my craft, but had elevated the philosophy behind it. This, perhaps, is the true meaning of legacy. In the autumn, Chloe started second grade. On the first day of school, Michael and I walked her there together. We watched her small figure, with a backpack on, run into the schoolyard. We both smiled at the same time. "Mom, thank you," Michael said suddenly. "Thanking me again?" "Thank you for giving me a chance to start over," he said, looking at the distant playground. "Sometimes I wonder, without you, what would I be like now?" "There are no what-ifs," I said, linking my arm through his. "Come on, let's go grocery shopping. I'm making your favorite braised fish tonight." Under the setting sun, our shadows stretched long behind us. The once broken bond of family was now stronger than ever. The once shattered home was now vibrant, with new life. And that was more than enough.